As an actor, I am fascinated with stories.
It's amazing that something like this still exists.
And Singapore is a perfect source for this.
Whoa!
What surprises does it hide? Or mysteries to answer?
Oh.
Join me, Adrian, as I go on a journey to explore and unravel Singapore's secrets. Here on History Mysteries.
When you talk about a train in Singapore, what is likely to pop into your head is an MRT train. And even for those of you who are of a certain vintage, shall we say, you're probably only able to remember the Tanjong Pagar railway station and also identify this green corridor that is leading off from the Bukit Timah railway station. But for those of you in the know, and those of you who enjoy trekking around Singapore, you'll probably be able to identify the rail corridor that leads from Woodlands in the north to Tanjong Pagar in the south. But did you know there was once a Singapore government railway that served many areas in Singapore? So why were these railways built? Where were the stations? Where were the tracks? And are there any remnants of these tracks left? Well, I'm certainly no expert, so I'm bringing one in.
Meet Jerome Lim, whose blog, The Long and Winding Road, which he started in 2008, documents old buildings and historical sites in Singapore.
So Jerome, can you tell me about the Bukit Timah railway station?
Bukit Timah railway station was actually operational until 2011. So it was, a kind of a halfway point between Tanjong Pagar and Johor Bahru. And because, it was, we had a single railway track, what that meant was that one train could only be on the track at any one point in time.
It was strictly a one-way railway track, but you could actually go either way at one time, obviously.
Only at one time, yes.
Okay.
And Bukit Timah was actually where this exchange of what they call authority was given. So,
Right.
it involved handing a key token to the train driver to give him authority to use this stretch of the track down to Tanjong Pagar or up to Johor Bahru.
So what's the history behind the station, though?
Well, the station was actually built way back in 1932. It was part of this railway. It was actually functioning as a physical station for passengers before that. I guess, that this was in days where we didn't have border control, so you could just kind of stop anywhere and everywhere along the line, so to speak. So originally, there was a railway that only served Singapore, and later that was extended or linked up with the railway in Malaysia. And we had this through railway that started in Singapore and ended up way up north.
From what I hear, there were trains running already even within Singapore before 1932. Is that right?
You're right. You're right. But this wasn't part of it.
Oh.
So there were actually trains running from around 1903 that went from Singapore station all the way to Woodlands.
So when the Bukit Timah railway station was eventually built, was it to serve these existing lines?
It wasn't built to serve that existing line. So that existing line had another Bukit Timah railway station. This was actually put here in 1932 as part of a realignment of the railway line.
Oh, okay. So the original one is somewhere else nearby?
It is somewhere else nearby. It's not very far away.
Okay. Are there still any remnants of the track from the original one?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
There's nothing left. But we can probably find where the location is or look for where the location is.
Okay. Yeah. Shall we do that?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go. Shall we take a train?
So, from the Bukit Timah railway station built in 1932, we travelled to the original site of the Bukit Timah railway station, which existed in 1903.
Right. So, Jerome, you brought me to this very unlikely place to locate this station.
Yeah.
Where exactly are we?
This map actually kind of shows us where the station might have been.
Okay.
So you do see there's a Presbyterian mission church there.
Okay.
So I think this corresponds to this Presbyterian church.
This one? Great,
here.
okay.
We should be in this corner here. where the RS railway station and the postal and telegram office PTO.
Uh-huh.
I actually got a friend, Mr. Mok Lai Ing. He's a cartographer.
Okay.
So he very kindly, superimposed a map of today onto a map, this 1920s map.
Ah.
And it does kind of confirm that that Shell station
Oh my goodness.
was the railway station.
Wow. So and it was just one of several railway
Yes,
stations
yes.
along this line.
You're right. So what it did is, it connected the stations in the north. So there was Woodlands,
Right.
Bukit Panjang and Bukit Timah. And the railway line actually ran down this way onto Dunnan Road. And it ran down to Holland Station,
Okay.
Holland Road Station,
Right.
Cluny Road, Newton. And then it turned towards Emerald Hill. And it crossed Orchard Road,
Okay.
crossed Killiney Road, and then it ended at the terminal station at the foot of Fort Canning Hill.
Right. Okay. And this was in operation, gosh, about 100 years ago.
More than 100 years ago.
Right,
So it,
right.
it started operation in 1903. So the first section was up to this point from Singapore Station, which was at the foot of Fort Canning.
Right.
And then in April 1903, this was extended up to Woodlands.
Right. So when did the very first train set off?
It set off on the 1st of January 1903 at 6 a.m.
Oh wow! So it was quite a momentous occasion.
It was.
on New Year's Day. So who were the regular passengers though on this train line?
It wouldn't have been your ordinary folk. I think if you think about it, fares were pretty pricey then.
Right.
So first class ticket from Singapore station to get here to Bukit Timah would have cost 56 cents.
A lot of money.
It would have been a lot of money at that time. Would have even cost a second class passenger 35 cents.
Okay.
And maybe third class 21 cents.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Which at that time, obviously, only a certain class of people could afford.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think one of the primary passengers, were people like the Europeans who could afford them, and maybe the Chinese, the richer Chinese, maybe the Babas. In fact, the Babas were very fond of actually traveling to Johor.
Okay.
Why so? Because for gambling, there were kind of the casinos of the old days
see.
back then.
And you're saying that there is a Fort Canning station that was called Singapore Station.
That was called Singapore Station at the foot of Fort Canning.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any traces of it left?
No traces of it. But we can go and have a look at what's there right now.
I would love to.
Yes.
Let's do
Shall
it.
we? Let's go.
From the original site of the 1903 Bukit Timah railway station, Jerome brought me to the site of the Singapore terminus at Fort Canning.
So, Jerome, you said Fort Canning, right? And the station was at the foot of Fort Canning. Where Fort Canning right now? Where could it have been?
Yeah. So that's what we have this map for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you got a trusty map.
You can see, we are more or less standing at the foot here
Right.
of Fort Canning Hill. In this location, and this is really where the first station was.
So we were literally standing where the station used to be. Wow, and
Yes,
there's
you're right.
no trace of it left at all.
There's no trace of it left at all.
Oh, that's a shame. Any idea what it used to look like?
I actually have a picture
Of
on my
course you do.
phone. Yeah.
Can I take a look?
Yeah,
Hold
let's
on to
take a
this.
look. Yeah. So,
Oh.
so this is, what it looks like.
So it was built in
In 1903,
1903.
but in 1907 it moved.
What, just after 4 years?
So what happened was there was an extension that was made to connect to the docks at Tanjung Pagar, as well as all the way to Pasir Panjang.
Right.
So that meant that the train actually ran down that way.
Okay.
So this station was kind of off alignment. So hence they decided to move the station nearby.
Oh, so it moved entirely rather than just building an alternative one.
There was an alternative one, and actually what became of this space was it became a goods handling yard.
Okay. So the structure remained, but it was repurposed as goods handling.
Yep.
But the station itself was moved somewhere else,
Somewhere else, yes.
somewhere far away.
It's very close by.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Can we, is it walkable?
Yeah, we can walk there. Let's have a look.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, so Adrian is the area where the station moved to. So the tracks ran down from that direction across the Singapore River to People's Park and to the docks. So when it moved here, it was called Tank Road Station. The first station master, his house was just here, and that house is still around.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where is it?
So it's in that direction. It's a national monument now. It's the house of Tan Yok Mi. So it was a old Chinese merchant's house, which was bought over for use by the station master, but for a very short while, from 1903 when Singapore Station was there until the station moved here in 1907.
Right. So are there any remnants of the track left at all?
No, not here, not the tracks. But we can, go over to maybe the Duxton Road area.
Okay.
Where we can actually see, where the train passed through, and we can actually make out where the corridor it ran through was.
So let's go to this Duxton area then.
Sure, let's
go.
Okay,
let's go. I love this part of Singapore, I have to say.
You do?
I'm in the middle of the kind of hustle and bustle. There's this kind of oasis here of green. Actually, it's very unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual.
Officially a park?
It is a park. So in fact, this whole corridor that goes under that bridge, that was part of the railway.
Oh, so the track kind of ran down this way under this bridge? Oh, so this bridge is original?
This bridge is actually original. It was part of that whole effort to extend the railway towards the docks and to Pasir Panjang from Tank Road Station. It ran past People's Park, ran down this way, and then there was a station at Borneo Wharf. So this was an extension made in 1907.
Right.
So remember the shift of the station to Tank Road?
Okay.
So this was to facilitate this, extension, which went all the way to Pasir Panjang.
So how long was this operational for?
This was operational for a very short while because, one of the things was it's passing through a very busy part of the city.
Right. It was quite residential around here.
It was quite residential. It was a mix. But there were many complaints about noise, and hence, it operated maybe for a year or two before being shut down.
And so after a year they shifted? They just
stopped operating.
Oh, I see. So there's no track to speak of that I can see?
There's no track. But since you're so interested in, looking for tracks, I can bring you to the Jurong line, where we can actually see, it was Singapore's industrial line.
The Jurong line, it's a separate line?
It's a separate line. And we can see, another set, maybe we can find some tracks and some other, railway paraphernalia there.
Promise?
I promise.
Okay, where? Which way?
This way.
Anyway, we have to take a train?
Yes.
Finally, Jerome was bringing me to see some railway tracks, which are remnants of the industrial freight-only Jurong line opened in 1965.
Whoa! My goodness, Jerome!
Isn't it amazing?
It is awesome!
Something you really don't expect in Singapore.
Yeah, absolutely. It is awesome.
Isn't
Jerome,
it?
It was really worth the trek here. So I mean, is there an official name for this tunnel?
There isn't an official name, but it's often called, the Jurong Line Tunnel because, it actually runs under Clementi Road.
Okay.
And it goes all the way to Jurong.
Oh, so was this a separate line that was an offshoot from the original?
So it's an offshoot from the main line, came from Bukit Timah station, and turned west. That led all the way to Jurong.
When was it constructed?
It was constructed in the 60s. To be precise, 1965 it opened.
Right.
And the whole idea was to connect Bukit Timah with the west. So the west was where Jurong Industrial Estate was being built.
Was it heavily used?
You can find newspaper reports, for example, that talk about volume being very light, not up to what was expected.
Oh, so it was expected that this was going to be quite a busy.
It
busy
was,
track.
yes, it was.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't. So I think one of the things that happened was there was development of roads, and I think our roads served us very well.
Yeah.
And by the 70s, we had expressways being built, and that I think kind of took the load off this line because, it was more efficient maybe to transport
Sure.
goods by
Sure.
lorries and
Sure.
things like that. Yeah.
So when did it become disused?
So it was used maybe, up to the early 1990s, and then it was kind of decommissioned.
And what we're looking at right now with
Yeah.
this kind of corrugated iron wall, is that original? Or it's been upgraded over the years?
Okay, so it's been replaced. I think one of the plans was to kind of, preserve this rail tunnel
Yeah.
just to remember the industrial line.
Okay, so you're saying that this actually extends to Jurong.
To Jurong, yes.
So can you give me an idea of the actual route
Yeah,
of
so-
this railway line?
Yeah, so we're standing now under Clementi Road.
Uh-huh.
So from here, it heads west. So it heads towards Sunset Way. There's a bridge over Sunset Way, and then another long bridge over the Ulu Pandan Canal, and then it turns towards Jurong East. So in fact, there is a kind of a tunnel also under the AYE.
Oh.
That leads to Teban Gardens. It goes past Teban Gardens, across Penjuru Road, across the Jurong River, and this goes west. So the main line ends up somewhere in Shipyard Road.
Wow, you know your railway tracks.
Yeah, so I actually traced the tracks.
Right, light rail, this guy.
Light rail, yes.
So are there any remnants of this at Jurong?
Last time I checked, yes.
Shall we go and take a look?
Let's go.
Yes.
Jerome brought me to Tanjong Kling Road, just east of Refinery Road, in the vicinity of Boon Lay. What are we doing here?
Okay,
So Adrian, here we are.
what do you mean here we are? All I see
Right
is
here.
this?
Yes.
This used to be a train track.
It used to be a train tracks. It used to cross the river here, head
Right.
in that direction from where we were. So
I'm assuming this big building wasn't here before.
it certainly wasn't here.
Uh-huh.
So it sits right in the middle of the train tracks.
Uh-huh.
So it's one of 8 bridges that used to line that whole path.
Right,
There were 3
right.
tunnels, 8 bridges.
Uh-huh.
This is the westernmost one.
There's a certain kind of beauty about it, actually.
There is a certain kind of beauty about this. I think it's something that you find across Singapore. If you walk around, there are things like this to uncover. Mysterious places like this.
Yeah.
To uncover.
Yeah.
So each of these do tell that story, a story that maybe might surprise you.
As long as you're willing to take the track less traveled.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Jerome,
you,
it's starting to
Adrian.
rain on us
Yep,
right now,
yep.
but thanks for spending your time with us.
No problem.
This really has been such a journey of discovery. Before this, all I had in my mind was that the railway system in Singapore just consisted of the station in Tanjong Pagar with a line that ran into Malaysia. I had no idea that there was this intricate railway system that spread throughout the island of Singapore. And finding these little clues in the form of a bridge or a short stretch of railway track just really gives you an idea that there's such a rich history behind the railway system that dates back over 100 years. And it really makes me want to find out more about not just the railway system, but what life was like back then. It's just fascinating.